your food order. Maybe the truck can sign up to be on Uber Eats. They can drive your food to you and cut a side deal with you for your recreationals. Like Tariq from the TV show Ghost. I'm Darian Sims, and this is how I see it.
It is time now for Kane County Speaks here at WRMN, AM 1410, and we have reactivated a YouTube feed if you want to join us that way at WRMN Radio on YouTube as well. We always have the app you can download and listen from anywhere. Static free on the app on WRMN too. It's Kane County Speaks, been on the air for several months now as we head towards the election. It is crunch time. And here to bring us the crunch again this time around is our friend Brian Anderson, and see if we can get the feedback out of his mic there and get things rolling. Brian's got some guests with us this morning, and welcome to the show, Brian. How you doing, sir?
Oh, great to see you, Mark. It's another beautiful day in Elgin. Yeah, I can hear the echo a little bit.
Maybe you need to move your mic just a little bit further away. There you go.
Yeah, there, perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, I don't know, close to 70 degrees. Perfect day, beautiful, crisp.
Yes.
Halloween is in the air, I guess.
It is kind of scary. Election season can be scary.
It can be.
Depending on which way it turns out.
So glad to be here. Before we get started, we've got this amazing citizen from Kane County, Jenine Mehr, that is just going to share with the listeners and the viewers the life and a day of a concerned citizen getting involved. Going to the Kane County board meetings. Delighted to have Lance Bell back in the House running for the Kane County chair position. And when you say it's crunch time, you know, we've got 19 days till November 5th. For those of us that are involved in local politics, I'm actually an elected precinct committee person, and so is Jenine, appointed. And I think, Lance, are you an appointed or an elected? You're an elected PC. And you're also on the Kane County GOP Central Committee.
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair. So for those, and Mark, you are an elected PC as well.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, we've got, what do we got? 3 walking weekends left for those that have kind of waited when you said it's crunch time. I've walked probably over close to 500 doors the last month, and not only in my own precinct, but we've got an independent candidate down in District 4, Bob Denon, and we have got a great group of volunteers walking down there. The reason I bring it up is I'm fascinated by the citizens of Kane County. I've met amazing people around Kane County, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. But, you know, when you go to the door and start talking to people, who you are, why you're here, what's going on, I was dumbfounded. And again, people are busy. They're raising their kids. They're working crazy jobs. People don't know. They don't know we have 24 board members. They don't know there's a chairman of the board. They don't know we're a $500 million county. They don't know how big a county we are. When you start talking to them and drilling down about the importance of voting, especially locally, their eyes light up and said, yeah, I can't wait to vote. Let me rewind just for a minute. I like to come in and talk about what's happening with the Kane County Board, and there are no surprises. I've never been disappointed. Yesterday was another special county board meeting to get the most important, in my opinion, as a citizen. The job is the job to balance the budget, and they didn't get it done. They did not get it done. One of the board members, one of the Democrats, does what I would hope that any elected official would do: pause, stop. I've done my research. I've done more research. I've done even more research, and I can't vote on this budget until 4 or 5 or 6 of these questions have been addressed. Madam Chair, well, we're going to go ahead and take a vote anyway. And lo and behold, out of the 24 board members, now many were in the room, some were zoomed in, and then I think one was not available. But Here we go. It's almost, and I'll give you the listeners and the viewers the example of the famous Nancy Pelosi comment, who represents, right, was Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C. We just have to pass it to find out what's in it. Let's not worry about it. We got to pass it. And I applauded the Democrat for putting the brakes on and said, no, we can't. But they took the vote, and lo and behold, we have Mavis Bates from District 4, Dale Berman from District 2, Cheryl Strathman from up here in Elgin, and Vern Tepe once again. We want to go ahead. We're voting yes. Let's just pass it. Even though, as Jenine will get into it here in a few minutes, our budget has ballooned in the general fund, if you will. I don't know, 65 million to 128, and I think the projection in 25 is up to 138 million. So these elected officials, tone deaf, spend, spend, spend. And we may get into it at the end of the program, but why do I say that? Because Vern Tepe, early this spring, summer, there was going to be a 4% Kane County gas tax. And by the time it went through several committees, he was literally the only one that was still wanting to spend our money and raise the taxes. And before I pivot into these two amazing guests, I have a friend of mine who sends me the Vern Tepe email that he sends out to his constituents, and here we go again. Yes, local lies and rumors continue. Here we go, folks. A small group of extremists who come to the Kane County board meetings to lecture us continue to spread rumors and lies. I don't have to stop. I don't have to go any further. And I think these two other people, and I think even you, Mark, would agree. When we go and we speak politely and professionally and courteously and challenge these board members to spend our money wisely and be frugal and prudent and review and dig in, if you're calling me an extremist, I'll raise my hand all day long because we have the wrong people in the seat, okay? And rumors and lies, just to let all the viewers and listeners know, we go in and basically speak truth based on their voting record. So when I talk about Vern Tepe and I have bullet points, that's his voting record. You can't deny it. So anyway, just wanted to get the listeners up to speed. The budget did not get approved yesterday, so they're scrambling now. It has to be done by December 1st, and here we have the election coming up November 5th, and they're going to be, bringing in the new board members. So they're scrambling, and I think they're going to try to probably have another special board meeting next week. But this is an example, and I know Lance will talk about it a little bit, the incompetence of the leadership, which would be Corinne Pirogue. The job is the job is the job, and balancing the budget should be top-of-mind conversation every single month of every single meeting. So without further ado, delighted to talk with Jenine. And so just like I've done with the candidates, where do you live? What county or township do you live in? And then the second question is, how did you get interested in going to these Kane County board meetings?
And Jenine, if you want to, you can lift that microphone up closer to you because we want to make sure. I think that was maybe part of the reason for the echo, but we want to make sure we get you loud and clear here on the show today.
All right, thank you. I live in Blackberry Township, which is in Elburn. Live in the woods, have moved back here. We used to live in Alaska, but we moved from here originally. Then we moved to Alaska and then came back because we wanted our kids to know the grandparents and grow up here. So that was about 40 years ago. And how I started going to the Kane County meetings. I was not at all politically involved until 2000, the Bush-Gore. I started watching Fox News throughout the day and night when that whole thing was going on for a week or so. And I just got really, really involved in the whole thing nationally and watching it nationally for many years. I had no idea what was going on here locally. Met a group of people that were very passionate about good citizenship and taking our responsibility seriously. So started going some meetings, and then just started questioning what was going on locally. So they started going to the Kane County meetings, and I started going, more and more started going, to where it was to the point where there was overflow was full. There was no room. People had to sit out in their cars and listen. So it was really getting exciting because we were trying to find out what was going on, and when we started digging in, we found out that there were some very serious things going on that would affect the future of us as citizens.
Lance, how about you? I know you're running for the chairman of the board, and I know you've done your due diligence, but when did you start going to the board meeting or tuning in, listening on Zoom? Because like you, many professionals are working, and most of the viewers and listeners may or may not know that Kane County, unlike a lot of counties, their board meetings are in the morning, unlike out over in DeKalb, where the board meetings are at night. So after you've worked a full day, you can go in and listen to the board meeting. But tuning in, what kind of piqued and caught your interest early on?
Well, that was one of the campaign promises that Corinne put forth in 2020, was to move these meetings to the late afternoon and evenings. It was one of about 7 campaign commitments that she put forth that none of them happened. And so, yes, it's hard for citizens to engage when most of the meetings start at 9:30 in the morning. I'm actually very, very grateful for all of the meetings being recorded on YouTube. It gives me opportunities to do a couple things. One is to get the transcript, and I keep a folder of all of the transcripts. That way, if I need to go back and quickly reference a vote or a quote, I have that information at my fingertips. The other part of it, too, especially with yesterday's board meeting, I listened to it last night, was that the audio quality is pretty fantastic. And you almost feel like you're in the room when you're listening to it via YouTube without being a distraction to the people that are there. You get to hear the emotion, the tone, and I enjoy that aspect. It's sad to say, it was a little bit entertaining, especially when you have a lack of leadership, you have a lot of angst flying around the room. And you don't have things. I don't want their budget to go through as it stands. So I think it's great that they can get it through.
Well, thanks for that. And I just learned something listening to you. 7 campaign promises that she had touted back in 2020. That was one of them. Getting the board meetings back to to mornings. What are some of the other campaign promises? Not to put you on the spot, but do you have those on top of your head? Or?
It's not an issue. You have. No. When I was preparing for the League of Women Voters debate, I went back and watched a few times the debate that she had, and this was online. It was recorded because of all the COVID stuff. And so I watched it several times. I documented and I counted them, but I'm not going to recall them right now.
That's fine. I think the main point is that when you tell people, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm running on, and when I get elected, these are the things that are going to happen, and when none of it happens, you have to scratch your head and go, why not? Right? So for me, I started to go to the board meetings, I'm going to say February of last year. It was for an isolated incident, issues going on with elections, and ended up digging in and trying to understand even more with the board and the elections group and John Jack Cunningham receiving $2 million. There were 10 counties in the United States that received this money for, quote unquote, running some of the best elections in the United States. But when you dig in and start to really review where the money came from, and we could spend a week on this show talking about, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Zuckerbucks. There are states that have banned that. Actually, out of the 10 counties, I know for a fact 3 of the counties that got this money, they gave it back, said we don't want it. I will tell you, as we speak today, I believe John Jack Cunningham has up until December 31st of this year to use the money at his discretion, and he has been asked several times what he's going to be doing with the money, because it's been $2 million. It's been sitting in the bank. It's been making pretty good interest. So what are you going to do? And I don't know. I suggested to somebody that they should remind him, if we have a budget crisis, maybe take your $2 million grant and give it back to Kane County government to help them fund their general budget. And now this is from a third party. There was a chuckle and a laugh and like, I'm not getting involved on that side of the fence. So interesting enough. But anyway, watching the board back then, I continued to go, I'm coming to the next board meeting, because what I've seen here is incompetence. And then month after month after month, watching the people have no clue on the money. And I want you to get into it, Jenine, where we are currently. And let me just kind of frame it up, and Lance, please correct me. So 2020, she takes over, I think in our 188-year history, we put a Democrat in the chair position. The general fund, which there's several funds, which is a whole different conversation, roughly, I'm just going to say 65 million, and in 4 short years, it's ballooned up to 128 million. I mean, those are the facts. I may be slightly off with my numbers, but I think you, as a concerned citizen, going to these finance board meetings and doing your own due diligence, which take it away, what have you seen? What have you heard? And going to the board meetings, does it appear that the board members actually even know what they're looking at or supposed to look at?
That was the most concerning, that the people there on the board seemed to have no idea. Like this was just a number out there, like monopoly money or something, not something that they would actually be responsible for as our tax dollars, the citizens' dollars that we work so hard for. Starting when we started digging into this, it was actually, this can't be true. These numbers are so astronomical as far as the change in them that we're looking at something wrong. This couldn't be right. Or if this is right, someone would have definitely brought this up, because it is so outrageous. So we really do seem to going toward a spending crisis, a disaster. I'm a financial advisor. This is what I see when I advise any families. I've got a native corporation in Alaska, small businesses, different people that I'm advising. And when I see something coming, I'm doing financial planning, I can look past and look at everything they're doing and then say, no, this is going to end in disaster. And that's what we're looking at here. 2014. Okay, so we would go back 10 years. That's a fair time to go back, because some people were saying, well, you're looking at anomalies because of COVID. But no, we're going to not even be concerned about that, because we're going back further years to see what the history was and what the actual trend is. 2014. 74 million. This is the general fund, this is what the Kane County Board is responsible for, that portion of the Kane County overall budget. So 2014, 74 million. 2015, 74 million. 2016, 75 million. 2017, 76 million. These are their expenditures. 2018, 76 million. I'm sorry, I might have said that. 2019, 78 million. 2020, COVID happens, not as much spending, 66 million. Then 2021, Kane gets elected, end of 2020, gets into office 2021. So 2021, 78 million. 2022, 85 million. 2023, 109 million. 2024, 124 million is the projected budget for this year, which will be completed very soon. And then the submitted budget for 2025, $138 million. This is like shocking. So what we can look at, and we can say from 2020 till 2024, which does take into COVID, so we'll say there it was an 88% increase in the budget. In 2021 to 2025, which we will take out the COVID, that's the first year she started, but that was her direction from then on. It was up 76% in that period. And that, again, is astronomical numbers, but one of the bigger things, too, is the drawdown of the reserves.
Now, pause that for a second. Lance, anything to weigh in on that? If you've done your own research and due diligence and preparing for these different events that you've hosted around Kane County, what's your take on that?
I think what is slightly more stunning is the percent increase. I'm going to steal your notes. The percent increase back before she came to the office was 0.6%, 1.2%, 0.7%, 0.3%. We had very strong fiscal constraints on the expenses. Then the Democrats take over. Explosion, 19.3%, 8.8%, 27.1%. And then we're looking at 14% increase for this year and a modest 11.7% increase for next year. So we're talking about a tenfold increase in the spending year over year with Republican control compared to Democrat control. Now, what's interesting about this is when you look at like the federal government, they just print more money. They don't think it's a problem. The state government, they're fine. They just steal it from the pensions. They got plenty to steal. You get down to Kane County, there's not a lot of theft that can take place when it comes to increasing revenues. And in fact, it's the drumbeat. It's all you hear is how do we extract more cash from the citizens of Kane County. And it's been great with a super majority, 16-8 on the county board. Anything that the chairwoman should put forth should get passed, just like a blank check. Yet her own Democrats have been fighting back against her. You mentioned the sales tax that got voted down. There was another property tax, a 3-year increase at the state max. It got voted down. So what did the Democrats collectively do? They put together this nice little $52 million, first time in the history of Kane County sales tax. And do they pass it? They can't, state law. They just toss it on the referendum for the April 2025 ballot. So they have a problem. They are spend drunk when it comes to our money, and they ran out of our money.
Well, thanks for that. And as we get close to our first break, what you just said, Lance, is staggering with this specialty retail occupancy tax that they want to put on, which they have, and it will be on the April 2025. Once again, the collective 24 board members, and I applaud both sides. You know, we know we need to do something. Well, let's just do 0.25. Vern Tepe, let's go 1%. So once again, one of the board members up here in Elgin, Vern Tepe, wants to spend our money regardless instead of taking the frugal approach. So let's take a pause. Let's get into our first break. A lot to digest. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, any calls, any thoughts are welcome. We're on YouTube. Lydia Corzin has given us a thumbs up, and Jane Mehr has also given us a thumbs up this morning. So if you want to give us a call, you can, 847-931-1410. It's 847-931-1410. We're on for another half hour. We have Brian Anderson leading the way with Kane County Speaks today, and a couple of great guests in here today, including the man who's going for the chair spot, and that is Lance Bell. Back in a moment here on WRMN.
With your 1410 WRMN Newsflash, I'm Sean Kernan. Brought to you by Linzette's. In a Kane County courtroom, Maricela Garcia has been found guilty of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, along with charges of aggravated battery of a child and domestic battery. Garcia facing judgment for the incidents that occurred on May 7th and 8th of 2021 involving a sexual assault of a child under the age of 13. In Batavia, residents are reminded to adhere to local regulations concerning the placement of lawn signs The city strictly prohibits the positioning of any signs on parkways between the sidewalks and the streets, and on all city public properties, including near traffic signs and utility poles. The Naperville Police Department currently accepting applications for new officers. The application period remains open for the next couple of weeks, with testing scheduled to take place in mid-December for potential new officers with the Naperville Police Department. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect, please? Because I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
Not sure how much you know about Progressive Insurance. You may know us for insuring your home and auto. You may know a couple of our commercials. But what you may not know is that since 2013, Progressive has been honoring veterans with vehicle donations through the annual Keys to Progress Veteran Vehicle Giveaway Program, giving back to those who gave so much. Now, you probably didn't wake up today saying, I really wish I knew more about Progressive Insurance, but this seemed like the type of thing people wouldn't mind hearing about. Find out more about how we're dedicated to our customers and communities at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
The LA Dodgers took a 2-1 series lead in the National League Championship Series with an 8-0 win over the Mets at Citi Field on Wednesday. The Dodgers out-hit the Mets 10-4. Shohei Ohtani hit a 3-run homer. Kike Hernandez ripped a 2-run shot. Max Muncy also went deep. Game 4 is tonight in Queens. Rookie Yoshi Yamamoto starts for Los Angeles. Veteran lefty Jose Quintana gets the nod for the Mets. The American League Championship Series shifts to Cleveland this afternoon. The Yankees with a 2-0 series lead. Matthew Boyd starts for Cleveland. Clark Schmidt gets the start for the Yankees. Thursday Night Football, the 2-4 Saints host the 3-3 Broncos. Denver defensive back Pat Surtain is out with a concussion. He's played 40 consecutive games.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Lowe's knows it's easier to make the right calls when you have the right team. That's why our Lowe's Red Vest associates can help with game time decisions. Plus, use in-store mode on the Lowe's app to find what you need. Under pressure at home and want it soon? Order online by 2 p.m. to get it same day. Same day valid on eligible in-stock items and select zip codes only, subject to driver availability. Fees vary based on purchase. Exclusions and more terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards that zero-turn lawnmower you've always wanted. And after using its edge-shaping technology to meticulously sculpt the face of the Mona Lisa into your grass, you'll become the undisputed king of Saturday morning lawn care, leaving your neighbor and sworn enemy Gary to question his place in the delicate neighborhood ecosystem. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in all states.
All right, we are back on Kane County Speaks for the second half of the show. Open phone lines if you want to join us, but if you don't, there's plenty to fill the airwaves with because we have lots of more information to share on this show, don't we, Brian Anderson?
We sure do, and we could probably spend the whole morning in here just talking about this. And I know Jenine wanted to dig back in and share a little bit more. I want to rewind all the way back to the beginning when she went to one of the finance meetings, executive meetings, and she got up and did a great job in the allotted 3 minutes of public speaking. And after the meeting, one of the board members, not going to mention that board member's name today, came up and said, excuse me, ma'am, but your numbers are wrong. And she politely looked at this board member and smiled and said, they actually came right off of your own off the financial audit back in July, I think. Yeah. And that board member had a very perplexed look on their face, like, well, I don't have my glasses. And this board member has been on the board long enough, right? So here's my point. I'll take the newest board member, David Young. It takes a board member, I think, or Bill Roth as an example, just like in business. I think it takes somebody a year, a season to go, okay, here's the job, here's the mechanics, here's what I need to do. But this was coming from a board member who has been on the board a very, very long time. There are no excuses. There are no passes. That is your job, right? You should know what's going on. And I think that just, the light bulb went off in her head going, this is absolutely unbelievable. Was I fairly close? Oh, yeah. And that's what we have going on. And I would say, and if you have anything to chime in before we turn it back over to her, Lance, is that you go to these board meetings, and it's not, here's your packet with 5 pages. There's 1,000 pages. And anybody that's working full time, and you go, I want to do my civic duty, I want to be a board member, and then you got to read 1,000 pages, and I know they're not. And it's not just one board meeting, it's all of these different meetings. So I guess my question is, to Lance, and I don't know the answer, and maybe you do or don't, is there anything as the chairman of the board that you could do to, I don't know, minimize all the agenda, the unnecessary pages? I guess my point is, how do you keep the main thing the main thing?
I've had conversations with the previous chair who was in the position from 2012 to 2020. And I asked him, I said, how often do people come to the board meetings to speak? And the response was never. I mean, he said when somebody would come and want to speak to the board, they rolled out the welcome mat. Then you got a spotlight because they're like, hey, look, somebody's here to share something. And it was a really big deal. Now, I don't know the lowest. It seems like every board meeting's got at least a dozen citizens, sometimes hundreds of citizens. And so that's an indicator that the board is being poorly led. The other thing, too, is I believe government is supposed to be small. And maybe one of the reasons why none of us really knew 2 years ago what the board did was because they were out of our lives. They did the essential services that the people in Kane County needed. They did it in a very fiscally responsive manner. We've got Kane County Board and we got the school districts. Our property tax bill, we get pounded because of the school districts. Yes. And that should be a radio segment after November 5th to start talking about the consolidated election and what's going on there. But at the county board level, I just believe for 180 years, we were ran fiscally responsible. That's why we didn't know a lot about what they did. Mm-hmm. Now they're in the spotlight. And why? Because they're trying to do too much. They've exceeded the responsible bounds on what they're supposed to be leading and managing, trying to jam solar fields into every open field. And if it's not a solar field, then it's a forest preserve. They're wanting to do things that go beyond, in my opinion, their purview, their mandate. And when you go out and you're trying to bite more and more of the apple, what do you need? You need more apples. And that's tax dollars. And that's the problem that they have, is they've run out of our money.
Well, and I agree with everything that you had just said, is that there are so many committees, right? We've got this committee and this committee and this committee, and go, how about keeping the main thing the main thing? What are the basics? What are the 3 or 4 things that we empower you to do? And I want to give it back to you, but Mavis Bates, this is Brian's language now, the climate czar of the board, they pushed this climate initiative. Yesterday, at the board meeting, as they had to try to, we need to authorize, we need to approve this, something came up where they originally had forecasted like $29,000 for this climate initiative project. Actually, well, we went way over budget, and we owe the vendor now another $10 or $12 or $13,000. What's my point? That's over your skis. We don't need to be in the business of, in Kane County or in any of these counties for that matter, trying to mandate me as a taxpayer by this date. Get rid of your gas-powered mower, go to electric, have an electric car. Right? Drive less, don't do this, don't do that. That goes against the entire fabric of who we are as a people, right? And interesting enough, and I'm going to give it to you, interesting enough, and I brought this up at the last board meeting, they had a big 2030 plan and a 2040 plan. And the projections with by X amount of date, Kane County is going to be, our population is actually shrinking, which is even more reason why are we spending more money when the people in Kane County, it's not growing. People aren't moving here as they once were. And so the projections are all off. Anyway, back to you digging in to what you were caught your attention, and you've decided to. Well, you even wrote a letter to Corrine Pirogue and the 24 board members.
Yes, I did, because of all this that happened. So they actually published it in the Herald, which I was surprised. They did redact a few things, but it was surprisingly in there. And I've got a lot of people that said they saw it, and a lot of precinct committee people are actually attaching that in their precinct packet because it has the details. When I walk door to door, I show people the numbers of what they were spending over these years. And that's just so simple and clear to see because people can visualize that as far as what would happen in their own household if that occurred. And they know it is unsustainable. So many people are waking up to see what's going on and are not happy with how not fiscally responsible the board has become. And the biggest part of it too, like Brian did say, from 2020 to 2024, the salaries went from 41 million to 78 million, the salaries part of the budget, which is an 87% increase. And the contractual personnel, which are also salaries that are like contract people, that went from 10 million to 17 million, 75% increase. But so they're hiring all these people. We did ask them how many employees there were. The finance gal couldn't tell us at the meeting, or how many have been hired recently, because we do want to know that and dig into this more to find out how this has occurred so many more, much more than inflation as far as the amount that's spent on salaries and contracts. So that is big. We're going to be digging into this more because people are waking up to see what's going on. But one other point is the reserve. The reserve was a very large number back in 2022. It actually had was 50 million was the let's see, the special account. I'm sorry. It was 46 million in 2022. 2023 went down to 23 million. 2024 it was 24 million. 2025 24 million. But in 2026, that reserve. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I got to correct here. The 90-day reserve target has gone down to the point in 2026 where there is actually going to be, it's gone, and they need 35 million to plug the hole. That's why they have got to, in their way of thinking, bring in this $50 million sales tax to plug the hole of that there will be no more reserve. They will still have the 90-day reserve, which is mandated by law, but the extra reserve that we always had, and we, like a homeowner would consider their emergency fund, they will no longer have that. So, and they, at this point, they feel they have no choice but to have a sales tax. Well, we want to go back and say, No, we had, in previous years, before all this happened, they were only spending $75 million. They can go back and maybe even if they just got down to the $100 million versus the $140 million that they want to spend, we could do without having a sales tax.
Yes. Anything to add on that, Lance?
No, it's about getting over your skis. You kind of said it earlier. It's about doing things you're not supposed to be doing. That's where all these expenditures have exploded. Yeah. There's another point over the last 3 years is that the union employees received a total of 18% in compensation increase, and that is twice what the non-union employees received. They received 3% a year over 3 years. So they got 9 in the aggregate versus 18. And there's a push to have more of the non-union employees become union employees. I personally have a problem with the concept of a public service union. You get a group of people together who mostly are forced by leadership to make campaign contributions to a group of candidates who then in turn promise, we're going to get you more money, whether it's higher pensions, more compensation. You get into a very incestuous relationship where the losers are the taxpayers. And I don't believe that's responsible. I don't believe it's moral.
Well, it isn't responsible. And to your point, and just so the listeners have some clarity, you're right. In 188 years, whoever was in that chair position led fiscal responsibility. We opened the door in 2020, believe it or not, when everybody was locked in and locked up, and they snuck it in. That's a whole different conversation. And in 4 years, they have gone on a massive spending spree. When you look at most of the spending, it's coming out in compensation. And it's public knowledge. You can go to the Kane County government. You can click a few links and get in and take a look at the entire compensation for every single employee in Kane County. I've done research and data on other counties across the country that are similar in size, even a little larger in size, a little smaller in size, and they seem to manage their budgets and keep compensation, keep employees, keep everything lean. I think what we're seeing here in Kane County, and it goes back to what Lance said, when we first started getting involved, we discovered that they had spent $750,000 on architecture drawings of a brand new $110 million, $130 million government building that Corinne Pirog wanted to tout and have. What's behind that? What you just said, Lance. We get a new building. You're going to have all the union jobs, all the union contractors, all the union people coming in. They passed an ordinance, it goes back probably 6 months or more, that if you owned your own construction business, Mark, sorry, we only deal with union vendors. So squeezing out the small entrepreneur, opening the door for unions, and, you know, we could spend the rest of the day talking about this. I'm okay with a union supporting a candidate on a small level. Corinne Pirog, a lot of her donations from unions, Elk Grove Village, Cook County, Romeoville, Joliet. Why is that? Every taxpayer in Kane County should be scratching their head and going, why? What's the reason for that? And we need to take a pause.
If I could insert real quick, with the union construction companies, they inserted a filter, and the filter is that the company had to have a formalized internship program in place in order to be considered for county work. Just for clarity, to keep us all on the same page.
So, you had mentioned that you got written up in the. What was it? The
Herald?
The Daily Herald. So interesting enough here, I happened to copy this morning. This was off of Vern Tepe in District 22, his newsletter to his constituents, going that referencing the article that what they failed to understand is that our county board, with all of its wisdom, used the COVID funds to pay for many of the operation expenditures during that time period. Well, there is some truth to that, and they do have to have all of their ARPA money. They're still trying to figure that out as we speak today. Yeah. Mark, they've had 4 years to figure out what are we going to do. And by the way, every municipality in the country got ARPA money, so it's just not Kane County. They have until December 31st. They're still trying to figure it out, okay, which is absurd. The other thing is, on what he said is, you look in, and I've read the federal document, there's like 5 categories that they had to use and spend on that money, right? It couldn't be just anywhere to anybody for anything. There were 5 categories. And then so he goes on to say that this misinformation was published by the Daily Herald. Why do they have to lie or mislead you? That statement should tell you everything you need to know. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They're mismanaging the money. They're not managing effectively. And I'm sure that the Daily Herald did their own vetting just to make sure that John Q. taxpayer wasn't bloviating. They did do a little bit of vetting, but the fact of the matter is, as you've alluded, Lance, is they're way, way over their skis and have been.
Yeah, if there was any untruths being shared, logic would dictate you would counter with a different number or with a different position. You don't hear that at all. The constant drumbeat is they're lying, they're lying, they're lying. How? And you're right. This information is everything we're sharing today, voters, is coming from their reports. This is their data that's here in front of us, and there are no lies in this.
And then one other point, too, would be if that was the case, and yes, they do get to spend that money and it's in the general fund and that's what bloated it, you would go back to the old numbers once that is gone. The trend has been for all of those years, $75 million. What they have done is now built a budget on that money as if it's still coming in, but it isn't. And now they're asking the taxpayers for it.
And what's amazing, this is a leadership issue, is that back in about late July, it might have been early August, the finance committee of the board put forth a balanced budget. Then that balanced budget gets the executive committee, and those folks start pounding and amendments onto it, and they pervert the work that was done by the finance committee. This is where you get back to Miss Juby saying, I've got a list of 7 questions I need answers to. Well, she's had these 7 questions out meeting after meeting, and her questions get ignored. In fact, this was yesterday. Yesterday, one of her fellow Democrats asked her to put those in writing, and they're in writing. They're in the record of every meeting she's asked those same questions. So it's almost as if her concerns aren't important, and if they just keep having enough of meetings, maybe she'll go away. So kudos to her for sticking to her guns up to yesterday, and the deadline is early December for this to get passed. We're about 6 weeks away, and based on the meeting yesterday, they're not close to having it done.
No, and you're exactly right. The Finance Committee did what they needed to do, and just so the listeners know, everything goes from one committee to the Executive Committee, and then to the full board. And so somewhere along the line between the executive board meeting and the full county board meeting, that's where all these discrepancies, which goes back to what we talked about earlier, is there's a lot of different funnels, right? You got the general fund, but when we have this fund and we have this emergency fund, how about just having all the money in one giant fund and make it simple for the board members and John Q. taxpayer to go, in our funnel, this is what we have, right? What we didn't talk about is that there's interest earned income in the bank that obviously does offset. And so when they talk about, we're going to be out of money, well, that's a yes and no. We have interest income. There's money in the reserves. There's money coming in every year from the property taxes that, again, if you pause and put the brakes on, but as we speak right now, and by the way, how much time do we have left, Mark?
We have 4 minutes, and we have actually one phone call.
Let's take the phone call.
Okay.
Let's put our headphones on and take this phone call.
847-931-1410. Let's see who we have here on Kane County Speaks Today. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. My name is Larry, and I appreciate the show that you guys are doing here today. As I hear this, I've done my own independent research, and I will tell you this. I think with regards to Madam Chair's agenda, people need to see that if the Democrats are pushing back, that's her own party that's pushing back. Madam or Mrs. Juby, who you're talking about, she's obviously one of them. She's pushing back. I did my own independent research and found out that over 97% of her funds, her donations, are being given by unions outside, not inside, outside of Kane County. So here's my comment. Whether you love Trump, hate Trump, I don't care. Vote for who you want. Vote for Harris. But at the local level, we need to go ahead and make sure that she's not in here, because she dismisses her own party. She dismisses the other party. She has an agenda that's above and beyond whatever the Democrats and Republicans locally might want. And that's my message to the listeners here.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say thank you for calling, Larry. We'll get the comments.
So, thanks for that, Larry. And, I started out the show as I've walked hundreds and hundreds of doors, and I've loved talking to independents, and I've loved talking to soft Dems. And what Larry just alluded to, when I knock on a door, here's who I am, here's the party. I'm a Democrat. First thing out of my mouth is, that's fine, no problem. Here's the beautiful thing about a general election. You can vote for Kamala Harris for president, but down at the bottom, you can vote for Lance Bell for chairman of the board. Why? Do you know anything about Kane County? Well, not really. Do you know anything about our budget? Do you know anything about the board? And when they give you the 4 or 5 minutes to talk, there's nothing better than getting a handshake from somebody and go, thank you for coming in. Thank you for this information. The same with the independents as well. I don't care who you vote for, top of the ticket. Locally, this is where we as taxpayers can change the playing field. So thanks for that caller calling in. 2 minutes to go. I think that, Lance, that what you said is spot on. The being prudent, not spending irresponsibly. And what do I mean by that? They've been clamoring around for 6 months that we don't have any money. But yet Vern Tepe and a few others had a compensation committee, which they were completely unqualified. And I spoke at the board meetings about having professionals that actually have been on boards and compensation consultants. And oh, by the way, Madam Chair originally sat in on her own compensation meeting, and immediately the very next meeting she goes, I'm going to recuse myself. These people, they just will do anything. Anyway, $105,000 is what she currently makes. They want to take her up to $140,000, $150,000. Thankfully, the fair-minded Democrats said, hang on a second here, Hank, and they froze her pay at $105,000. But what they did do is took some of the elected officials and didn't give them just an 8 or 10% pay increase. I think it was, 88 to 105, probably about a 25% pay increase on some of these. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank both of these listeners. I want to thank you as just a citizen going to the board meetings. My Paul Revere cry would be every citizen in Kane County that is retired or semi-retired should be tuning in like Lance on a Zoom call or going live to the board meetings, especially now that we've found out that we need them to be challenged and coached and corrected correctly. Thanks as always, Mark.
Thanks, Janine. Thanks, Lance, for being here. Good luck. Thanks, Brian.
Everyone has a community to lean on. A neighborhood, school, kids' teams, where you worship, work out, or any other place or group where you choose to belong. Communities can provide